everyone. Welcome back to the Play On Podcast Hurling edition. In this part, me and Luke are going to talk about the first championship match for the All-Ireland champions Limerick as they beat Cork by 2 goals and 23 points to 1 goal and 17 points. Now, this game was a game that me and Luke had been looking forward to ever since the fixtures had been announced, particularly after the first round of matches in the Allianz League, where Cork were showcasing their new style and they looked magnificent with it, and we were, it looked a real mouth-watering clash, to see this new style coming up against, the dominant All-Ireland champions. Didn't really deliver. Limerick just looked that little bit ahead of Cork, that they looked like they could win at 60-70%, and yeah, like the big names didn't play even that well, but Limerick are just that bit ahead of Cork, and I think Cork would be disappointed. They seem to have let this one kind of float by. They were in the game for long parts, but then Limerick just pulled away at the end. The key moment was that there were 2 goals in 1 minute for Limerick, and yeah, that just kind of put Cork away.
Yeah, completely. I think the first half was it was a tense enough kind of half. Like, you compare it to all the other games the weekend, were kind of free flowing, open kind of battles, and this was it was a bit stop start, and it was a bit anxious and stuff like that as well. And Cork probably should have been a bit ahead. There was the Peter Casey sin binning, and then the penalty that was awarded that resulted from it, and then Patrick Horgan, of all people, missing the penalty as well. Nicky Quaid making a fantastic save, really. But and then after that, that's when you talk about the 2 goals going from Limerick as well. Darragh Donovan with it was a fluky kind of deflection, ends up in the back of the net, and then as well, Kyle Hayes bursts through the Cork defence to bury in the bottom corner, and then from there, that kind of ended a half where Limerick are 6 points up in a half where Cork were probably the better team. But after that, it was just a devastating minute where Limerick just showed what they can do as champions, and I suppose from there that it was always kind of be predictable kind of from there, and Limerick just kind of did what Limerick do and closed it out.
Yeah, definitely. And interesting enough, now they're coming back to full strength, at the perfect time. Dan Morrissey came off the bench. He came in for Barry Nash. In my mind, he has to start for Limerick at fullback. I think he was outstanding last year. They have Gerard Hegarty back in the team. They've Aaron Gillan back starting. Seamus Flanagan now has really wrestled his place back in the team from Graham Mulcahy and Peter Casey, even though Peter Casey started alongside him at the weekend. Now Flanagan seems undroppable from the team. And yeah, now, like, Limerick, I still would put them down as, my prediction to win the All-Ireland, but it's not the most, eye-catching of starts from that. They kind of just put Cork away, but they did it kind of, in a lackluster fashion. Like, I still predict them to win the Munster Championship. I still predict them to win the All-Ireland, but, they haven't blown Cork away. They just kind of put them away nice and casually, no real pressure, and they've gone very like Dublin now, Dublin in the football, that Dublin footballers, they don't necessarily blow teams away really anymore. They just win no matter what, the circumstances seem to be. They just get the job done. They just beat whoever's in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's nearly kind of a similar pattern to Dublin footballers, that Limerick, just from kind of the positions 2 to 9, have just become so good. And they that's where they're dominating games. Like, you look around the middle, like Will O'Donoghue in midfield is absolutely dominating games in his own now at this stage, and that was just another feature of the game at the weekend. I thought he just absolutely controlled the game from midfield and stopped and broke up a world of play as well in there. And these are kind of the fellas that are stepping up now, like, as well. Like, at the weekend, I think it's important to note that, like, the big names up front, kind of Gillan, Hegarty, and Tom Morrissey, all kind of very quiet games. And yeah, all were taken off kind of early enough while the game was still in the melting pot. So it was kind of an interesting one but then, having said that, these guys were kind of considered the main men. But then you look at the others that step up. Peter Casey chips in with 3 points, and Darragh Donovan with a goal. And then you have a goal coming from half back from Kyle Hayes as well. So look, there's so many kind of options for Limerick as well. And I think Kylie would be delighted kind of with how it's going. By this kind of game, they managed to get the win by 8 points in the end, and at the same time he's managed to take kind of his big players off, so kind of giving them a bit of extra motivation and keeping them on their toes as well. So I think it was absolutely perfect from his perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Limerick are in a nice little spot because they don't have all the attention on them, but, they're moving nicely anyway. And as for Cork, I mean, this game kind of shows just the work that has to be done for Cork if they want to realistically win the All Ireland in the next few years, because they looked, just a distance behind Limerick. Some positives for them, of course, good performances from the youngster Shane Barrett, another good performance from Jer Millerick. But they're still hugely reliant on the likes of Patrick Horgan. And yeah, the time now for Patrick Horgan to win All Ireland is running out very quickly. And in my mind, if Cork don't win one before Horgan retires, he will retire as one of the best hurlers to have never won an All Ireland. He's so good. But, him missing the penalty on the weekend definitely was a key moment in the game.
Yeah, it was a weird one at the weekend. It was one of the most subdued kind of games I've seen from Horgan. He hit 5 frees, and there was a few wides from play as well, the missed penalty and everything as well. And they could have really done with him hitting absolutely everything at the weekend. In the game against Limerick, kind of a team that are so good, you need to be converting everything. And it wasn't the game that they wanted kind of Horgan to not be fully firing as well. So they could have really done with him converting absolutely everything. But like you said, I thought Jer Millerick in his first ever championship game, thought he did really, really well. And he was the victim of a very, very late hit in the back of the head from Garrett Hegarty. That was if that was spotted by the linesman, I think Hegarty could have been in serious issue there, because it was definitely late. The ball was nowhere near, and he just hit him with the hurl across the back of the head. So I thought it was Limerick were kind of slightly lucky with that one as well. And there was a few there's a few instances now against Limerick where they kind of play very, very much on the edge, and that is maybe a little concern going on in the year, that eventually one of these incidents might eventually be spotted and they could be facing an early red card in the game, and that is something that they will have to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very, very good point. That Limerick, what if they go into the semi-final, against a team like Kilkenny that has done a job on Limerick in the past, and Gerard Hegarty gets sent off in the first, 20 minutes or something. That could have a huge bearing on the game. And that's what we were talking about with there is the element of the unknowns. But what if, Hegarty does that in the Munster final against Tipperary, and now he's gone and Tipperary get the boost to kick on and maybe win the Munster final? Limerick have that, they have a bit of rashness in them. We saw it against Waterford as well. Kyle Hayes getting sent off towards the end of the game. They do have, and Seamus Flanagan, of course, got sent off in that game as well. They do have, a bit of rashness in them. They do have a bit of a temper. And, it will be interesting now. Is that a chink in their armour?
Yeah, well, I think they very, very much play on the edge. I don't know, maybe if some team could maybe capitalise it, if they can do what you see what's happened, kind of to apply it back to the Dubs in previous years when teams go out to Diarmuid Connolly to try and provoke a reaction. I don't know if teams can look into provoking a reaction from Limerick, because their discipline record this year hasn't been good. Like, they were clamped down hard in the league and they got away with a few at the weekend, but there's a lot of kind of online reaction to it. A lot of people kind of commenting on how they're getting away with stuff. So the refereeing panel will be looking at this, and they'll be looking at how Hegarty got away with kind of late head hit, and they'll be waiting for this in the next game, and that they will be keeping a close eye out for hits around head height as well that are off the ball. So look, they're going to have to be careful about it. And that's kind of the aspect of Limerick's play that you would like to see kind of maybe toned down a bit. Like, playing physicality is great and stuff, and there's no problem with that. But you'd like to see the kind of the dirty enough hits off the ball kind of being toned down slightly. And I know there's so much great aspects to Limerick's play, but this was a feature last year as well. You look back into the semi-final against Galway when there was a few kind of rash enough hits kind of throughout that game too that were they got away with as well. So that is probably the only blemish I would put beside them. But other than that, I think they look absolutely imperious. And I think they have to be the heavy favourites for the All Ireland, especially after this weekend, where you see kind of when we look at where the second favourites Galway are.
Yeah, definitely. And Yeah, you're 100% right that, that is really the only blemish that's on Limerick right now. Maybe they're not playing at 100%. It might be hard to just switch on 100% just like that. If they're not even at 100%, they're still getting a comprehensive victory over Cork. Well, then what is their 100% level capable of? It's quite scary. And no, just think about it in the sense that every single team in the country that sees themselves as credible All Ireland contenders will have a plan for what to do if they play against Limerick. And I think the idea of the ill discipline, the narrative building about Gerard Hegarty in particular, that he gets away with literally no matter what tackle he puts in, he never seems to be punished for it. And eventually that tension and that, frustration is going to break, and Hegarty will get punished for one of those tackles if he keeps it up. And I think if Limerick are going to be beaten this year, I think discipline might have a very big part to play with it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, look, I don't want to take away from what was a really, really good performance, but like they definitely were fortunate not to have faced more punishment for that incident in particular as well. But look, I think other than that, like they were really, really good at the weekend. And look, say in a game where kind of Cork, so much kind of went right for Cork as well tactically, where they kind of were able to match Limerick up like pretty well in certain aspects as well, to still lose by 8 points. It just kind of sums up how far Limerick are ahead of everyone right now. And look, to be fair to them, they're an absolute joy to watch the way they go forward, kind of as well. The inside forwards of Galan and Peter Casey they're so good. So it's going to take a really, really special performance from some team to beat them this year.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see how the rest of the year plays out. I'm still sticking to my guns that Limerick are going to do it, but I can't wait to see every other team's attempt at stopping them. First up is that Munster final against Tipperary, which will be a pleasure to watch. So, guys, that is the end of our review of the Limerick versus Cork game, and indeed the end of our podcast reviewing all the hurling matches which took place over the weekend here on the Play On podcast. Luke, thanks for coming on.
No worries. Thanks, James.
All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed the podcast, and take care.